Hey everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. This is the introduction for the short video, probably only about 20 minutes or so, on completing the rocking lever for the Quorn. And as you can see, I have finished it. Believe it or not, for a relatively simple part, there's some time that goes into this. So the segments that you'll see cover inserting the split cotter. You can see it in there, which works great. I've already tried it out on the workhead base here, and I used it, as a matter of fact, for some of the finishing machining. Also, how I added some screws on the bottom for an arm that I'll add to the bottom there to limit a guard, basically, if you will, to limit the travel. I've got video about boring out the center to match the outside diameter of the workhead base here, and also, as you can see, I finished, and I put a little video in about the dust guards. I haven't added any felt inside there yet, but just to note, there's two different sizes. I made this one last night. This is actually stainless steel. It'll polish up really nice. And the other one over here that I made for this side is just regular steel, where my finger is. So I'll probably polish and wax those things when I get all done. And there's a little segment in there about machining the back of the workhead base. I cut it off with a bandsaw and then machined it on the mill to a 1/2 inch thickness because I'm making the alternative design. And finally, in case you notice the color of these, the screw on the rocking lever, the adjusting screw, I've case hardened both of these things. I didn't do any video of the case hardening because I have some of that in my pillar tool video, but that's why the color is like it is though. So let me show you how this fits. It fits really nicely on here. And yep, let's see, I'm gonna make sure the split cotters are not separated there, so let me separate them. There we go. So it's a real nice smooth fit, shake free if you will, rattle free, whatever you want to call it, and it's going to work out very nicely. I'm really excited about how this came out. Obviously these bolts will be replaced with the ball handles and the studs. It's handy to have the bolts in there, the hex heads for tightening, for when I'm using that as a basis for machining. So if you will, just enjoy the next 20 minutes or so of video about making the rocking lever. And next up, after this, I'll be working on the tilting bracket and the bolt. I'm going to make the cone style, the alternative tilting bracket, and from the 1986 Model Engineer article. So I hope this is enjoyable to you. Again, welcome to the new subscribers. Thanks everybody for your comments, and I appreciate it. And I hope these are all helpful for you if you're making your own Quorn someday. And please keep the comments coming. They're much appreciated, and I enjoy it, and I hope you do too. Thanks. Hey folks, this is segment 1. I'm going to try to incorporate that into my videos here so I don't get the segments out of order. Before I start machining this piece, this is obviously the rocking lever, as you can see from what I wrote on it when I got the castings from Mr. Bear. Thank you again, sir. Anyway, this is a really nice casting. Some of the castings, as I've pointed out, that came in this set that was bought back in 1975, some of the castings are not that great. This one has a little rust on it, but that's no big deal because it's all going to get cleaned up. But this one is really nice, so I thought I'd take a video of it before I start machining it. I'm really just going to have to clean up the sides, maybe take off 10 or 20 thou on either side to get it down to the 3/4 inch overall width. Not very much to do at all. This side needs to be finished pretty well because it's going to match up to that side of the workhead base, and then this side just needs to be cleaned up a little bit because I need to drill and tap 3 holes for some 440 screws that will go in there for a dust cover. So a couple of other notes: the drill and tap a 5/16 32 hole in the end here for the adjusting lever that I've already made. And one of the improvements, sorry about the finger in the way, but excuse me, this little tab on here, this was put in the castings to help make it easier to machine using a 4-jaw chuck and a lathe. And they say to file it off when you're done. But for me, I'm going to leave it on there because, and probably even just mill a little flat there and drill and tap 2 holes, because one of the improvements that are listed under the very much improved Quorn series that was published in, I think it was Model Engineering Workshop here in the States, is to have a lever that goes underneath here, that sort of a catch lever basically. And having used the Mini Tinker, I can tell you I think that's a brilliant idea, because you're going to have a ton of stuff rotating and twisting, and when you're setting up an end mill to be cleaned up on using the Quorn, it's very possible that if this thing's not tightened up, the whole assembly could flop backwards towards you. So having a little lever, a little catch lever underneath, just kind of catch it from going backwards too far, is a great idea. So I'm going to leave that on there and drill and tap a couple of holes in there. The only other thing of note right now is, you can see from all this scribbling on here, I've ciphered out the dimension, the offset here to use. I'm going to use a 9/16 inch brass bar for my split cotter, and I went ahead and bought some fresh brass stock off of eBay. There's a seller on there that is, right now, this is the year 2021, his name is Stoner something or other, but he's out in Colorado, and you can buy small packages. He sells, this was a package of 6 or 7 pieces. They're like 10 or 11 inches long, something like that, in a variety of diameters, and it was, I think, $39 plus shipping. So very, very helpful for the hobbyist home machine shop guy. But what's nice is, I just wanted to kind of show this, the 9/16 inch diameter is going to be perfect for this, and I ciphered the numbers out a couple different ways, and an 800 thou offset from the center should give me plenty of contact. It should be enough so I can drill the hole and crazy glue the split cotter in there, and then machine out the hole. This diameter right now is roughly 1 inch. It's going to get machined out to 1 1/4 inches to fit on the workhead base. So if the brass comes fairly close to it but doesn't stick through right now, that's going to be perfect, because there's going to be roughly 1/8 of an inch on either side machined out, if you understand what I'm saying. So tonight I'm going to go ahead, I'll put the brass bar in the 5C collet chuck in the lathe, and luckily, since I have the right size outer diameter already, I don't have to machine the outside. All I have to do is drill and tap the center of it. I'm going to use 5/16 24 for the thread, so that matches the ball handle on that I made for the Quorn. So I'll bring you back when I've got that done. Alright folks, segment 2 of the rocking lever episode. I went ahead and machined my 9/16 inch brass cotter that will go in here. I'll be crazy gluing that in a few minutes. It's a nice snug fit, so all I did was use the drill, so I'll have to tap that in a little bit with the crazy glue on it and let it dry overnight. And also thought, since I've got the thing already in position and ready to go, and I knew what dimension the center line was, the center of it was here, I'd go ahead and move out the 3.5 inches and drill and tap for the 5/16 32 using my Model Engineer taps. So that I'm doing right now. I'm tapping it. I'll finish that in just a second, and glue the thing, clean it all up, and glue the brass in for the thing. Okay, now I'm using the giant 3/4 inch boring bar, taking off about 30 thou on this cut, 70 RPM again. Probably could go faster, but with the uneven load like that, 70 is fine. Got the nice slow feed. I'm getting a really awesome finish in there. There's the automatic feed. You can see it's a couple thou per revolution basically. And like I said, it's about the 3rd cut. I've checked it out. This will take it out to 1 inch and 100 thou, so I still have 150 thou more to go. And I will bring you back to show you the final cuts perhaps and the fit inside. Not much to this. This is a fun lathe project. I used to use my 4-jaw lathe, the lathe 4-jaw all the time on my little Lathe Master 8x14. I don't use it that much on the Grizzly 12x36, but it rocks. Hey folks, for the 3rd segment on the Quorn rocking lever, thought I'd show, as you can see, I've got the brass split cotter glued in place. I glued that in place yesterday evening, and I've just put it in the 4-jaw chuck. I'm using a piece of hex brass bar stock as my standoff, because that'll give me a little bit of separation here from the jaws to the outside surface. This will be the inside surface that needs to just take a few thou off just to clean it up. I did clean it up in the belt sander yesterday, and I'm using the Noga holder and a gauge here. I've got it centered as well as I can for a rough casting, so it's plus or minus about, as you rotate it around, plus or minus about 20 thou or so, but point by point I'm plus or minus about 5 or 10 at the most, so fairly happy. You're not going to get much more accurate. This is not a finished dimension here. This is a rough casting like I showed you in the first installment. So I'm pretty happy with the accuracy there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything is tight. Then I'll drill it out a little bit. The biggest drill I have is 1 inch, and then I can bore it out the 1.25 inches. Of course, I'll remove the bar stock here, and before I finish everything, I'll take the bar stock out and I'll put the gauge on it just to make sure it's just fairly level. I don't want to machine it if there's some sort of offset there. So I'll bring you back when I'm in the machining phase. Okay, after aligning everything as good as possible, this is take 4 here of the project, the rocking lever. I'm using the automatic feed. You can barely see it. It's feeding out very slowly. I'm only turning at 70 RPM because of the unbalanced load. You might be able to go faster than that, but I'm not in any rush. So 70 RPM, probably about moving a couple thou, 3 or 4 thou per revolution. I forget what I have the feed set on. And it's cleaning up nicely. I only took a couple thou off the first time. Now this is about, I think, a depth of cut of only about 6 thou, so this might be it. Maybe one more pass, just a very light cleanup pass. Thought I'd do this first, and then I'll do the boring out. Now you can see how cleanly that side cleaned up. I just mic'd it. It's exactly 3/4 inch thick, so I took off about 15 thou total, and it came out really nice. Really pleased with that. So now I can drill it out with so this is a 15/16, and I can do a 1 inch, and then I can start boring. Got the 1 inch drill. This is the largest drill that I have, so I'll be drilling out the bore to 1 inch and then switching over to the boring bar, which I really like. I love using that big boring bar in the cast iron. I'm going to use the same 3/4 inch one that I used, I showed you before when I did the body of the Workpiece base, so I'll bring you back for that. Hey, I forgot to take an action shot of this, but as you can see, the next step is to place the rocking lever down and drill and tap 3 holes. Since I'm in the US, I'm using 440, and I just finished that. One note of caution is be careful if you're using a split cotter here, where you put the hole and how deep you go, so you don't interfere with your split cotter. Alright, the other thing I wanted to do while I've got the rocking lever out, I'm going to adjust this, is drill and tap for the 440 screws. Basically, I'm tapping right now. I'm holding an iPhone with my right hand and pressing down on the quill as I rotate the tap in there. I've just drilled it. They're 1/8 inch back from the lip and a 3/16 inch in on each side. So this thing is 3/4 inches wide. So there's 3/8 of an inch in between the two. And I just go in as deeply as I can. I've drilled the hole all the way, pretty much all the way out. And there we go. And as you can see, I did want to point out that the arm is not just floating out in space. It is supported by these 1, 2, 3 blocks and a little shim to get to the right spot. So there we go. And the last step on the workhead base is milling the back of it to an even 1/2 inch, because I'm making the alternate style. the alternate style clamping bolt for the tilting lever. So I cut the little stub off on the bandsaw, left about 1/8 of an inch to clean up, cleaned it up. This reason you see the little trash bag back there, I've got a magnet in it so I can just brush the filings, the cast iron filings to it, and it makes the cleanup easy. So that pretty much concludes. I'm going to come back and do the overall project introduction here in just a minute.